Hey there, you're here with
Amber.
Tala.
and Alana. Welcome to
Connecting
The
Dots
Podcast.
Welcome to episode 3, and we're so glad to see you. Today we're here with Miss Racheal Curtis, and she is a clinical counselor who works with people that are legal adults. And today she's going to be talking about her personal life. She's going to share some experience about love, peer pressure, and fitting in. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started.
Yeah, so I'm Rachel. I'm a registered clinical counselor here in BC. I work out of both New Westminster and East Vancouver, and I offer online sessions to folks in the rest of BC. And I work with individuals, couples, and families who are of adult age. I do not work with children or youth.
Okay, could you briefly tell us about like your general hobbies and things that you like or you're passionate about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, pretty vanilla. Um, I watch a lot of Netflix, Paramount, Disney Plus, Prime Video. I have them all.
Mhm.
I actually rotate from month to month so that I don't pay for them all at once.
Yeah.
But I'm super into, like dramas and crime,
Mhm.
anything that kind of is about uh, understanding people more
Mhm.
deeply. I'm sure that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just after working with folks all day in trauma settings, you would think I would want to watch like comedies or just stupid stuff, but nope. I just love the deep stuff. Uh, I like working out, and in the summer and spring, I play tennis. I love tennis.
Yeah, for our next question, what does being yourself mean to you, and how do you think it could help you connect with others?
Love that question. Being myself. Personally, I think being myself means that I'm free to, exhibit and show all the parts of me. So what that means for me is I can be kind of silly,
Mhm.
pretty playful at times, which for some folks, for a 47-year-old, it might be a little like you're 47, but for me, it's really important to live in joy.
Mhm.
Right? And to be able to express those moments of joy in the ways that feel good to you, right? So I could be silly, I'll dance around the room sometimes. I do funny voices like it
Mhm.
what so it's the freedom to really express. I also think that being yourself has a little bit of this element of knowing which contexts it's safe to be yourself.
Mhm.
So I'd like to throw that out there too. I wouldn't just, you know, go to a business dinner and, start making weird noises, So
Yeah.
I think there's a context, but generally speaking, it's just being really free, knowing who you are and allowing her or him or them to be.
Mhm. Okay. Next question.
Yeah, so can you think back to your time as a student or a 16-year-old? Like, what was that like for you?
Oof. Uh, Going way back in time. Um, yeah, I know exactly what it was like to be 16. Um, there were a lot of really good times, so um very grateful that I was athletically inclined and I played on all the sports teams, and so that was my way in. That was my way of being even just a little bit like popular or accepted or known. Um, and I was pretty good at them too. So you know, when you're good at something and you shine a little bit, it's easier to fit in.
Mhm.
However, what a lot of people don't know about me is I grew up as a pastor's daughter in a very small town, in a very strict religious upbringing where we couldn't cut our hair, we couldn't wear makeup, we couldn't go to dances, we had to wear long skirts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like we're talking like not a cult, but like pretty intense. Like there are
Yeah.
rules to follow. So I found it extremely hard as I became a teenager, and specifically around 16, right? Like
Yeah.
you start thinking for yourself and you're just starting to like question everything and you're like, this is dumb. Um, but more importantly, I found myself trying to navigate two worlds.
Hmm.
One was the world that was expected of me from my parents and my church. And the other world was my peers and at school every day, which I spent most of my time at, trying to fit in when you can only wear skirts, can't wear makeup, can't go to the parties, can't go to the dances, can't hang out with any friends from school because they're not Christians, was really, really hard for me. I really was depressed a lot. I struggled internally. I don't know if many people could see it on the outside, but it was a really tough time. Yeah.
Yeah, so our next question actually kind of like relates to what you're talking about like right now, which is like have you ever felt like you had to change yourself to be accepted and how did that like make you feel?
Oh, absolutely. Very human experience, especially growing up, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I couldn't do much about wearing skirts, but I made up for it in attitude.
Mm.
So I became quite anti-authoritarian. I got kicked out of class
Oh.
often. I was the class clown. I was funny. I became this kind of rough and tough and swearing and trying to be cool persona at school. And then at home and at church, of course, it was like, I'm the preacher's daughter. I play the drums on the worship team and I sing and I'm in the choir um, and so, yeah, for sure, I tried to be, like I said, I kind of was one person at school and one person at home. Um, yeah, like I became a fighter. I got into lots of fights with people, like
Mhm.
actual physical fights. Just,
Oh.
when you're trying to be two different people, it creates a lot of anger.
Hmm.
You don't know it's there, and you're kind of like, I don't know why I am this way, but I am. So yeah, I was definitely in two different worlds and
Mm.
trying really hard to fit in them both and not being able to fit into either. It was tough.
So, did you have like trouble like making friends or just kind of getting close to people?
Not at all. I'm actually really good at it.
Yeah,
So
so
yeah, I learned how to, right? I
mhm,
learned
yeah.
really quick. I also grew up in another culture. I grew up in Hong Kong as a child, as a missionary kid.
Yeah.
I learned to ascertain the situation and look around the room, figure out who is safe. And I learned people skills like really quick because I had to, or I wouldn't have had any friends, especially in, a different culture. But I made friends with the street kids and yeah.
Yeah, so what do you think is like the hardest part about finding a group of friends that you truly connect with?
Like I said, I didn't really struggle. Despite how hard it was to fit in, I learned to fit in. So I personally didn't struggle a lot with not having friends. Um, always had people, always had somewhere I could go and hang out away from home. And yeah, I think that these days it's extra hard.
Yeah.
I am so grateful. I grew up at a time, and I'm going to sound old saying this, I know, but I am grateful that I grew up in a time when all of my stuff wasn't all over social media. All my mistakes, all my, poor fashion choices or, crazy quotes that I would, or attitudes that I would like post. Um, I think it's a lot harder these days to truly connect on a real level because there's so many ways you can hide behind a persona on social media.
Mhm.
And so I think these days I wonder if kids like you know I'm sure at school it's easier, like in person, because you can ascertain and feel the vibe with someone and like, oh, this person is like me, or this person has a caring and a good vibe. And so you can feel yourself being kind of like attracted to that, so to speak. But yeah, I think it must be really different these days. I'm going to just trust that it is different than when I was 16 years old so many years ago. I'm sure there's some things that are still very common though, like this the craving for connection. You
Yeah.
just wanting to be part of a group.
Yeah.
Um, and that can be so hard sometimes. Yeah, especially if you feel like you're not typical, right? Like somehow you're not typical. You're not like some of the other cool students or whatever. And you're kind of like, but I'm not that, but I want to have friends. Yeah, I feel like I haven't answered that question very well, but that's the best I can do.
Mhm. Oh, that was great. So, like, as you kind of like grew like older, what's like something you worried about like as a teenager that turned out like not to really matter?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind. I think the first one is like you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have like it all together or the perfection that you think that you perceive as being perfection. Um, all the time we spend as teenagers trying so hard to create a persona that will be accepted. I get it. Listen, I get it. And I don't know how we teach young people not to do that or not to, because I think it's just a big part of like growing up. You have to figure it out. Like you try being like someone else and then you're like, oh, it's not me. Or you learn later, you're like, oh, I didn't like being a part of that group, or I didn't like being friends with that person. But you have to go through that to learn that
Hmm.
sometimes. Um, But one of the things for me was like, Rachel, if I hadn't known this, Rachel, not everybody's out to get you. Like, not everyone is judging you as hard as you're judging yourself. Like, nobody cares. Like, they're all caught up in their own business.
Hmm.
But I spent so much time like worrying about what my church thought of me, what my parents thought of me, what my peers thought of me. Um, that was a lot of like anxiety and worry to carry around. And yeah, like I said, at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. I actually reached out to some old high school friends about 7 years ago. And I said, oh man, like, so sorry. Like sometimes I was like a lot or da 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 da. And the friend emailed me back and was like, Rachel, we were all just trying to get through high school. We didn't notice you as being that way. I was like, oh, so that was really interesting. No one in my friend group actually thought that about me. And yet, right up into my 40s, I had been thinking that I had been perceived as that way.
Hmm. What would be a piece of advice to give to someone struggling to find their purpose in life?
I love this question. This is what I do. I love working with people who feel lost, like all ages, right? They come into my office and they say, this is it. So I'll have like a 30-year-old, very common, people
Yeah.
in their 30s, they come in, they're like, this is it. I did all the things. I found a partner. I got a good job, got my education, right?
Yeah.
Found a place to live, but this still feels like this is it. So I'll be like, yeah, this is it. So, what could you do about that? So I try to work with folks to figure out their values.
Hmm.
If you know your values, like what's truly important to you, then you can take those things that are truly important to you
Hmm.
and you can make choices to go in that direction. And if you're making choices that are coming from your authentic, true self, you are probably going to find meaning in doing those things. And if you can find meaning in doing those things, ultimately, people are a lot more happy when they're able to do that.
Hmm.
So, it could be things like, for me at 47, my strongest value is stability and security. So in my relationship, in my finances, in my work, I just want to be like, I don't want a lot of interruptions and, starting to think about retirement. Um, but for someone who's younger, they may be looking for adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they may not be doing anything in their life that is moving them, that is living out that value of adventure. I had a 70-something-year-old woman come in and do a values exercise. And one of the values, one of her top 5 values that came out at the end of this exercise was fun. And she said, "Oh, I'm so surprised. I didn't think that card was didn't think I was gonna have fun in my list." And I was like, "Well, what does that tell you about yourself?" "Yeah, I haven't really been paying much attention to that one." I was like, "Do you think that could help you to find some more meaning and direction in your life?" "I'm going to think about that." Yeah. So it doesn't matter how old you are. If you ever get an opportunity to do a values exercise to determine maybe your top 5, they can change over time, right? Or not. Uh, and then you can find ways in which you're already living those values out. Or maybe there's some you haven't really been working on, and that's why you're feeling a little low, a little depressed, a little down.
Wow, thank you. So what is a piece of advice that you wish you had received earlier in life?
I wish I had received a lot of more guidance in my life, but hmm, you are enough.
So our next question is similar to like this one, but it's like, what is one piece of advice that you would have given like yourself when you were 16?
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I could go back, and I've done this in counseling, you go back and visit your little self,
Hmm.
and you sit with her and you ask her, what is it that you needed that you didn't get back then? I would say, I just needed to know that I was enough. Whether I could follow all of the rules of my church, or whether I could follow all of the rules expected of me at school, whether I could, I just needed to know, Racheal, you don't have to try so hard. You're good enough just as you are. So I think that compassion-based, you are enough is so powerful. And I have so many people coming into my office dealing with that. I'm
Hmm.
not enough. Oh.
Yeah. It's like especially for like for grade 11s or like kind of transitioning into like post-secondary. Like we struggle a lot with kind of maintaining that like trying to reach the expectation with like grades and everything. So I think like that like simple like advice just telling yourself that you're enough, I think really like it's simple, but it means a lot.
If
Like
you can
to
learn to do it, the hand over your heart, when you feel those moments of anxiety related to your studies,
yeah.
I also want to let you in on a big secret. Nobody cares about the grades. I'm a counselor. Not one person has asked me, well, did you get 100% all your courses? Like, nobody cares. Your parents care. Maybe you care a little bit because you put some kind of stock into that grade. Like, if I don't get a 90, then I'm not smart. No, you are enough. All you have to do is your best. And sometimes not even your best. Sometimes just handing it in is enough, depending on what you're going through at any given time in your life. So having that self-compassion, right? Always feel yourself spiraling. Always, I've got this. I'm enough. Whatever I have to offer right now, it is enough. It has to be enough.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So do you think your past relationships make you a better or a worse person now?
Oh, better. Absolutely better. Um, yeah. You learn so much about yourself from every single relationship you go into. And sometimes those relationships are really hard and maybe they're toxic or even sometimes abusive, not in my case, but like it can be really hard, really awful, but it's what you can take from it. Take the parts that were good, take the parts that were helpful in you understanding yourself better
Mhm.
and being able to understand, oh, when I'm with somebody, I tend to respond in these ways. Interesting. And if you begin to see yourself getting into patterns with every boyfriend, girlfriend, partner that you have, that might be something you want to hone in on. And like, oh, maybe sometimes it's me.
Yeah.
Not every single person that I date is an a-hole. Like, what if I'm the a-hole?
Yeah. All right, so the next one is what is a moment in like your past or current relationship that makes you still smile?
Okay, I don't want to gross anyone out, but it was my and my partner's first kiss.
Oh.
We were walking, she was walking me to the SkyTrain station, and it was just, one of those cute moments. We're just kind of getting to know each other. And I jumped up on a fence because I was very silly. Um, I was feeling silly, and I jumped up on the fence, and I was just being kind of flirty, funny, and it just seemed like the moment, and I just leaned in, and there it was, and I was like, okay, this is great. We've been together ever since, 18 years.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to overcome challenges in a romantic relationship and how did you manage it?
Oh yeah. Oh, listen, you will have challenges through all the different phases if you're ever able to be in a long-term relationship. There will be moments of, ease, and there will be moments when, for whatever reason, the two of you are like, and there will be moments when one person, for example, when I had to do my master's, like super busy, can't really be there for each other as much, but one person takes more of the load, and the other person, that switches sometimes. So, I mean, there's always going to be stuff that comes up. Um, Sorry, what was the question again?
How have you ever had to overcome challenges in a romantic relationship and how did you manage it?
Yeah. So I think you learn from the misbehaviors. So, sometimes we learn after the fact, right? After conflicts or after things have happened, like, oh, what happened there? And, what was that about? And so I think the individual partners have to look inward,
Mhm.
right? And maybe go to individual counseling if need be or something to figure out, oh, like I'm really defensive when it comes to that thing. And then ultimately, I of course, highly recommend relationship counseling when you're feeling stuck, like the same patterns just keep happening. And you're like, we need to work on this if we're going to survive. And not just survive, but thrive and have joy in our dynamic and in our relationship. So getting the help of a professional third party is, I mean, I'll tell you, has been extremely, extremely helpful in my partner's relationship, let alone I work with couples myself.
All right, so the next one is, have you ever tried to change your partner and like how did it work out?
This is a great question. You can't change your partners. People will tell you this all the time, right? Especially girls. We always say this to each other. Women, we're like, you can't change a man. There's no point. But it's like, hopefully, as two people are together, you're going to change anyway.
Mhm.
Like, how can you not in some ways when you are li in a relationship and there's so much compromise that has to happen? But you don't have to lose yourself, but you may adapt and change a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think I was trying to get my partner to do once. Well, for me, it's man, Rachel, like you just leave your socks in random places around the house. Like this is a simple example, right? And the thing is, she's not wrong. And like, I guess I could work on it, but it just doesn't seem to be changing. I think there's a pair of socks out there right now, probably by the sofa.
Yeah.
Um, there are just some things that you're not going to be able to change. And that's a humorous example. But if you're trying to get someone to change, like, I don't know, like something that's a big part of their personality or something, I don't recommend it.
So our next one is how did you first understand what love means to you? And how did that experience shape your views on love?
That's a great question. Um, so yeah, I think, well, first of all, I never really understood what unconditional love was until I met my partner. Um, so if you're lucky, you will meet someone who is able to, if you've always struggled with that, acceptance and self-compassion and self-love. Not that we should depend on others for that, but the thing is, we all get broken and hurt in relationship, whether it's with parents, siblings, friends. So does it not make sense that we would also heal in relationship?
Mhm.
So the wounds that happen between others in the past, there's kind of like a healing that can happen in our present relationships when you're in a good one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's important um, that we allow. There's this message for young people these days. It's like you have to have your own stuff together first, and then you'll be a good partner.
Hmm.
No, I do not adhere to that philosophy or that ideology at all, and all my clients can tell you that. I believe that the best way to yeah, to understand what love is to learn to let someone love you
Mm.
and to learn to begin to practice yourself what it looks like and what it feels like to love and to show that love, if that's hard for you. But yeah, I think just being able to be yourself with the person,
Mm.
right? To me, that shows that that's love, that no one's asking you to change, right? They may see some things that you could work on, but it's not like you need to change in order for me to love you. In
Hmm.
order for us to stay together, like you have to do this thing, we have to do this thing. So I can tell you all the ways where it's not love. And especially for young people, like just watching out for that um, kind of relationship abuse. It can get into a tricky area really fast when you're young because you have all this stuff and you haven't had enough time in your life yet to work on it, and you're just starting to discover it. And so it comes out in your young relationships. Um, I would say a lot more perhaps than in an adult person who's had time to reflect and to change and to shift and to heal.
Hmm. Yeah, that pretty much rounds up our interview. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, it's been so nice to, meet with you and, questions. These are great questions,
Thank
very
you.
thoughtful, reflective. Yeah, I had to think for a minute. But it's been good for me to reflect on some of those questions and if more and more of folks your age are able to reflect on those questions too,
Yeah.
I can see how it would be really helpful.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank
you're very
you.
welcome. It's my pleasure.
Hey guys, welcome back to Connecting the Dots podcast, episode 3. So happy to see y'all here again. And today we have Racheal Curtis here as a registered clinical counselor that helps with adults. She today shared a lot of life advices and experiences from her teenage life. Tala, do you mind sharing?
Yeah, of course. After listening to what Racheal Curtis shared, don't you think her advice sounds familiar?
Oh my god, wait, really? No way.
It's the same advice from episode 2 with Miss Dawn Kelly. They both said that if they ever had a chance to tell their 16-year-old self an advice, the one advice they would give themselves was, "You're enough." It's simple, but has a lot of impact, and both Miss Kelly and Rachel shared how they wish someone told them earlier that they were enough. And similar to what I said in episode 2, with this simple advice, I think Addie could benefit from it. But not only Addie, because this simple affirmation builds self-acceptance and helps you embrace your imperfections. So if no one has ever told you this, let us be the first ones to say it. You're enough.
Thank you for joining us on our journey so far. We appreciate the support all of you have given us. Sadly, we will be heading into a short hiatus and won't be posting anything for a while. We aren't very sure how long that would be, but we will be back with better content and more advice for all of you. Let's stay connected. This is Connecting the Dots. See you then!